Hello again, Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, back for more Malifaux, and this time, Gupps. Fire Red 09004. This is going to need a second coat, so I'll do that off camera. So Gupps are the juvenile form of the Silrid. Silrids spawn mothers lay huge clutches of eggs, typically into fresh corpses or even living hosts, which the Gupps will feed on as soon as they merge, before turning on each other, cannibalizing their siblings until a smaller number of the strongest spawn survive, and they will form up into these small packs to hunt. And like many creatures of Malifaux, killing and eating the flesh of others makes them grow, and by the time a Gupp is this far along, it should only take one, maybe two kills for one to grow to a full-fledged Silrid. In fact, the rules are if this model kills a living or undead, and I think it mentioned beast as well. I'd have to double check, but that's kind of odd because beasts should have one of the two keywords, but whatever. Starting to ramble. They can actually be replaced with a Silrid. And the spawn mother will be in the next video, but okay. The kit had basically 3 sprues with 3 copies of each sculpt, with the intent being to mount these in groupings of 3, so a total of 9 of these little bastards onto the 40mm base here. And again, the basing is just some sculpting putty with a quick mud pattern punched into it. And I'm going to apply that to the rest and move on. I'll add oh boy, that got out of hand. Come on, focus. Come on. Alright, there we go. I will add a second layer of this off camera, but that's a start. Okay. Alright. Sun Yellow 09008. I am following the same color scheme I used on the Silrids. That pot's about empty. So you can't really see much definition in between their fingers. So I'm just going to worry about getting the more prominent fins on their heads and backs in the yellow. And this is after the second coat of the Fire Red was applied, so it's got too much paint in it. In terms of water, I'm using just enough to move in the paint. I'm keeping the brush moist but not overly wet. Okay, a little more on the front here. Alright, apply that to the rest and move on. Okay, well this next one's going to be a little bit awkward. Shield Brown 09161. So one of these sculpts is holding a tree branch as a club. And the only other Silrid I've seen that does that so far would be the first mate from Zip's core box, who is a Silrid as well, but don't have him yet. So they have some Most silurids seem fairly animalistic, but they are capable of using weapons, but then again, typically their teeth and claws are more than enough to do the job. Alright, apply that to the rest and move on. Alright. Leather white 09062. So we're going to put some color on the underbellies. Probably not as much as on the full-grown silurids I did in the last video, though. I maybe should have done this before the club, but okay. Apply to the rest, and I might be able to move on. Okay, second to last base coat, yellow bone 09143. And there is so little definition detail-wise in the claws here. I think I might just stick to the teeth. Yeah, I think I can go ahead and do that. Just tiny little nubs. So we've got proposes one that looks like it's scheming, one that looks like he's scheming. So one here in more of a aggressive ready pose, and the third holding a club. Okay, apply that to the rest. Once all this dries up, I can get the last base coat on the base itself and go on to shading. Alright. Woodstain brown 09160. This one's running out. No, should be enough. Should be enough. Okay, just need the right brush for the job. That'll do. Being real careful around the toes and feet. We can loosen up outside that. So I did say in the last video there was probably going to be an uptick in videos coming out this week, but things went way off script the last 2 days. So it's fine. Life happens. We'll just see. We'll just see what happens with this. Again, I'm keeping my brush moist, not overly wet. That's got a little too much water in it right there. always keep a paper towel on hand to use to blot out your brushes and soak up paint that gets a little out of hand. Okay. Apply that to the rest, and then I can start shading once it dries. Alright, shading. Marigold Yellow 09007. And I misplaced my brush. Go. Thinning the paint with 1 part water to 1 part paint to make a wash. And applying over the relevant base coat. Just letting it flow down into the crevices. And that'll help make the deepest areas darker, which when combined with the highlight will make the raised areas really pop. But to be fair, I do some pretty subtle shading and highlighting. Okay, apply that to the rest and move on. Alright, that Marigold Yellow is still drying, but I can do Stained Ivory 09142 and get the teeth and claws. And again, thinning with 1 part water to 1 part paint. Just carefully going over the teeth and claws. And quickies of plate, that's it, so let that all dry. Oh boy! Joins technical difficulties strike again, so I'll do another one. Another one real quick. Just quickie on the teeth and claws. Oh boy. Once again, the more technology allegedly advances, the more it turns out like that Mel Brooks movie Spaceballs. Only without the intentional wit of it. So, apply that to the last one, let it dry completely, then I can move on to the next. Okay. Alright. Vampire Red. This one almost shot. Just see. Looks like I've got enough to do what I need to do here. Alright. And it seems my system's already acting up. Boy. Again, 1 part water to 1 part paint. Now the eyes are going to be done as a detail, so That's why I don't care if I'm covering them up now. They're going to get a completely fresh coat of paint when I hit them after all this is done. Do need to be mindful of the talons and the underbelly, though, because this red is going to be darker than what I shade that underbelly with. So I need to exercise caution. And I am getting really paranoid about my system acting up. The problem is it is so inconsistent. If the problem was more consistent, it'd be easier to figure out and fix. Okay. Apply that to the rest, let it dry completely, and move on. Alright. Linen white 09061. Yeah, I need to get this before the wood. Again, 1-to-1 ratio of water to paint. And carefully get the underbellies. Be real careful right here because I don't want to nick the red or the wood. Nicking the base is okay, that's going to get covered up when I finish. I'm just kind of dabbing it on. Okay. Apply to the rest and move on. Alright. Woodstain brown 09160. And this is just going to shade the tree branch being used as a club by the one sculpt. The white is still very much wet, but I can still do this part. You need to take care when shading adjacent areas of different colors because your paints will blend. You can work with that, but it can also work against you, so it's just something to keep in mind. Alright, move on in a minute. Apply the rest. Oh boy, slurring the English language here. Alright. pure black 09037. Going to do this twice here. First, I'm not going to dilute it. Well, not as heavily as I do for a shade, because this is going in the eyes. So, getting the brush moist but not overly wet, using just enough water to thin the paint, and I'm just giving them, just like the adult form, is giving them these dead black eyes. And there's a good chance I'll have to touch this up after I highlight. But I want to get this on, at least the first layer on now. These are nice and big, so I don't have to guess as much, because sometimes on these models you kind of have to guess sometimes, depends on the details sculpting. Okay, fill in the rest and then I can move on. Okay, eyes are all painted, so taking that same 09037 pure black, I'm now going to thin it with 2 to 3 parts water, 1 part paint. Darker colors like black will need a little extra water compared to paint. Otherwise, you'll completely muddy up your base coat. While shading will alter the state of your base coat somewhat, you do want it showing through a little. And that's just going over the base. And again, this is just a quick custom sculpting, just a layer of putty in the recessed area, in a recess in the base, with a quick sort of mud texture is what I was going for, carved into it, with the models glued on top after it dried. And yeah, okay. Apply that to the rest, let it dry completely, and then I can highlight. Alright, time to highlight. I'm going to start with Ghost White 09063, and I'm just going to knock them all out on camera here. This typically doesn't take too long at all to do. Switching to a ragged feathered brush, something along the lines of this. Straight paint only, no water. Gonna rub most of it out on the paper towel to look like there's nothing left. And dust the area to be affected. I'm focusing on the most readily visible areas only. So that's gonna mean some portions are gonna perpetually be in shadow while others get lit up, and it's pretty subtle on this white triad, this off-white, is pretty subtle, but I do like it. And there's nothing wrong with subtlety. Phoenix Red 09005. Yep, this one next. One thing about highlighting is it dries very quickly. Not quite instantaneously, but almost. That said, you've only got a matter of seconds to fix any mistakes you make. I'm trying to avoid the eyes here as I highlight. But if I nick them anyway, I'll just go ahead and touch them up. I'm done here. Refreshing the paint as needed. Practice and repetition are the key to all this. Although debatably those could be considered synonyms. I'm not certain if they're officially considered synonyms though. Not a whole lot of raised areas on these to go against, but typically any sharp edges you want to have your brush going counter to them. It'll help catch the paint on this step. A bit more prominent when I hit the fins. Yeah, this sculpt right here looks very much like a sinister schemer. Not necessarily the most overt threat in the group, but probably the most dangerous through calculation and cunning. And I'm hearing bad noises from my computer, but it seems okay. Refreshing your paint during dry brushing, you can do it from the palette or from the paint on your paper towel. Both will work reasonably well. Can use a little extra on that elbow there where I nicked it, the white earlier. And Driftwood Brown 09162. I don't need much of this. Make sure frame rate's okay. It's reasonably focused, but that's still going to make me paranoid. It's a bit too much. And I'll just worry about getting the tips of these improvised clubs here. Creamy Ivory 09144. Oh, come on. It was going so well. Focus. Focus. Oh, boy. Oh, now we got some problems here. Okay. The joys of technical difficulties strike again. Using a particularly small one for this test. Now I keep gore effects to a minimum, just personal preference. But this is when we're putting a little bit of vampire red on the fangs might actually be appropriate. All Silrid are voracious carnivores. And since Gupps tend to grow into a full-sized member of their species after eating their first kill beyond this stage in their lives, it would actually be appropriate. remember right, I did do a tutorial on blood spatter when I did Dr. McMorning and some of the models in his box set a while back. So that's a thing to look up. Lemon yellow 09009. This is where this will stand out a bit more, getting the fins. And they're much more prominent on the Gupps than they are the silverheads overall. Last one. Okay, and Shield Brown 09161. Not gonna spend too much time on this one, just quick dusting on the base. Scenic bases are fine, but I feel the base shouldn't draw more prominence than the model standing on it. Oh boy, I just dropped them. Okay, that's it for highlighting. Doesn't look like I need to go redo any eyeballs, so I'm going to take pure black again, 09037. And I'm going to use the same amount of water as a base coat, so I'm keeping the brush moist but not overly wet, using just enough water to thin the paint. Also switching to a flathead brush. Just going to line the edge here. This can be, well, technically speaking, any of this can be done in any color you want. So this is just an arbitrary choice. I used to do a faction-specific color for every, well, yeah, I used to do faction-specific colors for Malifaux, but with all the faction changes, I just stopped doing it, especially since they were poorly communicated. The Silverids and the Gupps and the Spawn Mother were among those that had a faction change going from Neverborn to Bayou. And apply that to the other two, let it dry, and there'll be one more step. Alright, last step, now that everything's dry. Matte white. I'm just going to number the bases so I can quickly tell them apart for game purposes. just putting the same amount of water as a base coat, just enough to thin the paint. Just Roman numeral 1. And 2. And a 3. Okay. And that is it. Gupps. The Spawn Mother is the next thing we're going to be doing. So until then, I am Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, signing out.